Hey, Avery, how do I pronounce your nickname? Like Suavecito? How do I say? Akira is just fine. Akira, like the animation. Yeah, like, even though that's my real name, that's fine. Yeah, Akira is fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Avery, but I go by Soavecito, and I'm a horror content creator. Welcome to episode 15. Crazy. I can't believe we're already 15 episodes in when I created this in April. Episode 15 of Whispers of Horror. We got Akira to talk about his game, and I'm excited to have them. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I don't know exactly what I can say. Like, my name is Akira. I'm from Brazil. I'm living in Japan, and yeah, Subversive Memories is my game. Like, I've been making it for like over a year now, more or less. And yeah, development has been like slow but steady,
Okay.
and that's it so far.
So something I like to do is to get to know you just a little bit more. So I'm going to ask you just a couple questions about you and just how you got
Right.
into like video game development. We'll just start off with by that. Like, when did you start making video games, and um, what made you want to become a horror game developer?
Okay, let me see. I think I'll tackle these questions like separately. Like
Sure,
first,
sure. Yeah, it was a
yeah.
two-parter.
No. Um, the thing is, I went to like game development, like college, university back in 2008.
Okay.
But around that time, like especially in Brazil, there were no job opportunities in this area. Everything was starting to like indie development was basically non-existent. There was nothing like that. Like, and most of my friends from that time, like they ended up working with cybersecurity, like software development, banking, this kind of stuff. And I ended up dropping out from that course. So I actually I don't have a degree like in video game development.
Hmm.
And that kind of went like into like, but yeah, like that was just an idea. Like I didn't I didn't like make anything over the years, but stuff kind of like changed during the pandemic. I think that's the case for a lot of people. Like,
Hmm.
um, I had a lot of free time. Like, I had to stay home, like lockdown, this kind of stuff. So I decided to give it a try, give it a go, like try to make some small things. And that was like, yeah, pretty much like 4 years now. And I've just been doing stuff as a hobbyist, like nothing in particular, like nothing commercial, nothing special. Um, and my first idea was actually to make something similar to an old school Zelda game,
Okay.
like a top-down Zelda game, like with dungeons, with this kind of stuff. I had a demo for a game like that. Like I just made a demo, didn't go anywhere, and then I started working with 3D. But then when I jumped to 3D, I played Signalis.
Great
And
game.
for me, yeah, it's an amazing game, and that's really made me. I started making some parallels between like how Signalis kind of operates like an old school Zelda game, like from top down perspective, and you go room to
Hmm.
room. It's kind of like a maze. You get to get some keys. And initially, I didn't think about making specifically horror games, but then when I merged my knowledge, not like a professional knowledge, but like some sort of knowledge into making like dungeons in Zelda, I was like, well, maybe I could make something um with some of the fundamentals of top down with horror. And that's when I started like um just playing around with the idea, and I started making Subversive Memories as a prototype. The
Hmm.
original idea was very different. It had nothing to do with that. I was actually making something kind of like um a Stardew Valley with a horror like idea. But then
Okay.
I scrapped the idea out, and I then I changed everything, and I started focusing more on um something a little more narrative driven, and that's how Subversive Memories like started to get like the shape that it has now.
Okay. Nice. 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 Let me ask you. When it comes to just like making like video game, like when you're working on the video game and just like your personal life, how do you balance being able to have time for your video game, the video game development of that, and just like balancing your personal life? Is it like uh, hard, or is it something that you have a good balance when it comes to that?
Yeah, like right now I'm having a lot of trouble with that because the thing is, I'm not a professional video game developer, and by that I mean like I don't have an income
Yeah.
from game development. My actual full-time job is English teacher.
Okay.
Like I teach English in Japan, which like very different. But um, I can only work on Subversive Memories on my free time, which nowadays I actually separate stuff. So like I have my working time, like teaching. I have my like coding time, as I can say, like development time for Subversive Memories, and then I also have my free time, which I
Hmm.
can play other games, watch movies, and get like entertainment. Even though I get a lot of joy from like making Subversive Memories, it's really hard for me to balance everything. So to say I'm busy, it's kind of like an understatement, honestly.
Oh no, listen, I
It's,
totally understand.
yeah,
I totally get it.
yeah.
For
But that's
me,
pretty much how it
yeah,
is now.
I was gonna say for me, like just being just like a horror content creator, streaming at crazy amount of times because apparently every horror game developer I had has been everywhere from other than America, which is not a bad thing. But that means I've had to stream at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Yeah,
Like I've had people from Japan, Poland, Russia, England, Australia, and it's just a beautiful thing. But yeah, trying to balance that, have like, and I told you I was a little late because I have a daughter and everything, like, and a wife, and
yeah,
like I think people don't. I don't want to say don't understand. I guess not. I guess in a way don't understand. They like even though we make our content just like in just games or just content in general, we still have our personal lives. So when we turn it off, we still got to deal with everything like family,
yeah,
friends, and everything. So it's like a big sacrifice trying to find a balance. Even me, like I struggle. Just
yeah,
making sure that I have time for my family, my friends, and but also making the thing that I love to do, which is making content. So it's an
yeah,
ongoing battle, and whoever has a solution, please let us know.
yeah, yeah. That would be great.
um,
And that's something I think a lot of people like should like consider when they like I don't know thinking about video game development. But also I think that applies to anything, content creation, like
mhm,
drawing, making music. This kind of creative work, it's not like you can sit down and work 4 hours on it like
mhm,
consecutively, like nonstop, and have been very productive. Like this is the kind of work that you need to. Some days you're gonna do it very well. Some days you don't want to even touch like the work that you have to do.
yeah,
And I think that's something that players in general should empathize with, like creators, like developers, artists, everybody. Like It's a work that requires a lot of inspiration, and I mean, I think it's more than that. But people are not printers, I'm not a 3D printer and you say like, okay, make a game, and then the game starts like
We're
being
not
made in front of
robots.
you.
Yeah, like we're not
Yeah,
robots.
exactly.
We're human beings. But is a reason why I created Whispers of Horror, just because like when it comes to just like a video game development, when people go on Steam, they see the game, but also just see the person's name, or they just see the studio. They don't know anything other than that. Like obviously they have the game, they
Yeah,
see the content, the art that you guys make, but it's like with Whispers, it gives a face to the name. You know, it gives a
yeah,
personality. You get
that's
to
great.
know a person on a personal level of like the blood, sweat, and tears they put into this game. So
Yeah,
it's a way to really show people like, yes, we're human beings. This is the struggles that we go through to make this content, and it kind of brings more appreciation for those games. So again, I just want to
yeah.
say thank you so much for being a part of this, and
Thank you for the space too.
yeah, absolutely. And then we're gonna get to talk more about your game. So right now, I'm gonna switch over to the scenes, and then we're gonna have just some of that a video of your game, and we can get into it.
Nice.
All right, switch over, and then I'm gonna hit play. All right, so some subversive memories. Can you give me an overview of your horror game and what sets it apart from other horror titles on the market? It is muted, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, just because I want to make sure that we can hear his audio and I don't want it to drown out.
Yeah, if I could like, if I have to pitch this game, it's basically like a retro survival horror game
Okay.
that is set into a real time, like, and place. In this case, it would be like Brazil, but it could also be applied to many South American countries.
Sure.
So it mixes like real story with a dash of like fantasy, sci-fi. Like it really depends on how you see this kind of story, but like reality with fiction. Um, and the horror comes in different layers, like the layer of the true horror that happened and other stuff that I cannot spoil, but like stuff that might happen in the game and that's not exactly related to what happened in real life.
Hmm.
That's basically what Subversive Memories, a retro survival horror game.
Okay. Okay. How long has this game been in development? You might have mentioned it before, but if you don't mind mentioning it
It's
again.
fine, yes. More or less a year,
Okay.
but like when I say a year, like as we're saying, like as I just mentioned, it's not like I've been only making this
Hmm.
for a year. Like I've been doing other stuff in my life, but also working somewhat with some ideas of projects, sometimes trying to learn new things. Like for example, when we had the Unity um like problem with install fee, this kind of stuff, like I was trying to learn Godot, like see if I would maybe use Godot in the future.
Hmm.
That also took some time. It stressed me out a lot, the idea the Unity came up with.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's more or less a year.
Okay.
Um, and another sure, sorry, I think I'm going ahead of that, but maybe it might take around almost a year to finish from now. I
Okay.
would say that like I would need to work on this game. Like where I'm planning to release this either by the end of the year or beginning of next year,
Okay.
like
Uh,
2025 Q1 or something like that.
Is there do you have a like do you know how long the game will be, or is that something that you'll know when you get closer to the end of development?
You mean like playtime?
Yeah, playtime.
Like, mhm. Yeah, it really depends. Like I think I would aim at like something around like 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
But based on the play testing, I think this kind of stuff really like varies like wildly among players. Because some people like to explore everything.
Hmm.
They want to like try like to find every pixel in the room, like see if they can find secrets and this kind of stuff. For example, I have a demo now, and the demo had to be to last 30 minutes.
Okay.
But when I play, it's like 5 minutes, of course, because I know everything. But some people take around 1 hour to
Okay.
finish, and that's what I mean. Like, oh, I aim at 3 hours, but that might like be very different from player to player.
I'm kind of jumping around with my questions. I know you brought up playtesting. Obviously, community engagement is vital for the success of indie games. How do you involve your audience in the development process, and how do their reactions influence your decision on the continuation of this development of this?
Yeah, like I have when I take the analytics like data, I see that at least half of the people that are interested in this game, either based on a wish list or Twitter followers, are Brazilian.
Okay.
I think for through the eyes of like Brazilian players, I mean, and I'm talking about myself too, because as a Brazilian, like we want to see more stuff that is Brazilian, that refers to Brazil, stuff um that targets this audience and that communicates with them.
Hmm.
And that's something I try to do when I advertise for the game. Um, so, for example, like when I communicate with the Brazilian audience, I make references to Brazilian culture, like, oh, does this house look like your house?
Okay.
Does like um and also historical facts like um some newspaper that like for example you're gonna find some newspaper in the game
Hmm.
and they might refer to stuff that happened in real life. And this is something that comes to like um cultural like knowledge, like how what your experience like. So for some reason, it's going to be very obvious, like okay, I know what he's talking about. But for some other players, might just be something interesting that they
Hmm.
might see. Because in terms of the general audience, like the let's say like international audience, not Brazilians, I think a lot of them get drawn in from the visuals of the game. They look at that and they feel like, oh, I think I would like to play this because it looks like something that I enjoy, like something that looks retro, but at the same time doesn't play retro. Because I think this is also something people point out a lot. Like they want to play games that bring some of the feelings they had from the past, like Resident Evil Classic, like 2, Silent Hill 2, classic stuff.
Yeah,
But
like
they
that
don't want to have the
nostalgicness.
same Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But one thing that's very tricky about being nostalgic is that you want to experience the feelings, but you don't want to go through the same troubles.
Mm.
Like you don't want to have tank controls anymore, or maybe you do, but most people don't.
Yeah.
So when I try to reach out the international audience, I try to show this kind of differences between what subversive memory is and what they should expect from it.
Okay, perfect. I was gonna ask, like, I know you said, like, I apologize, lost my train of thought. Marketing is something that is like not only when you're making a game, you want to get the game out there. Like, what are some things that like, how is that process for you of like just getting the name out of the game out there to audiences and just to get the word out? Like, hey, I'm making a video game, come check it out. Like, what are some things that are you doing to just get it to the masses?
The thing I think because like subversive memories, like I am perfectly aware that this game is not for everybody.
Okay.
Like because um and of course when I say everybody I'm talking about like all players. Like this is a kind of niche game. I think even for people that like horror games. Like for example, for players that want to have like realism fidelity in their games, like want to see like very nice graphics with like 4K textures. Like this is not a game that's not for them,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. Um, so because I have to be aware of that, I try to focus on niche groups. Like um, there are communities of people that really like games that feel like a PlayStation game, like a PSX experience. People that like games that are more focused on narrative. So I try to find these niches and communicate with them, say, hey, I'm making this game, like please check it out. Like maybe you might like it. Um, it's not the easiest thing, but I think like if I try to make a game that would please everybody, then would probably be either like a very bland or
It stops becoming your
really
product. I mean, it stops becoming your art
yeah,
when you try to please everybody. So, like, you still want to hold a part
exactly.
of yourself for the game. I totally respect that. I think that's I think some people, or just like games developers in general, they just let too many cooks in the kitchen, and that changes the
Yeah,
all to the ultimate version of the game, which not a fan of. But like I said, I totally understand that. Like you still want this to be a part of you.
hmm
Let me ask. So let's talk about like what inspired you to create Subversive Memories for this particular horror experience. And what were some specific influences, like other games, movie, literature? Like what influenced you to make this and inspired
yeah,
you?
that's a great question, Ari. Because um, well, based on the visuals, like a lot of people might assume that this is like very similar to Signalis,
Mm,
but in a way, Signalis actually made me feel a little frustrated with the way that they portray politics.
okay.
Um, and um, Subversive Memories is a political game because it talks about something that happened in real life and how that affected the lives of like an entire country or even older nations, but specifically the Brazilians. So if I make a comparison, I think one of the biggest influence would be the tension, the Taiwanese game that talks about the martial law. I mean, not talks about, but it's set during the martial law in Taiwan
Mm-hmm.
that was persecuting people that were against the government simply because exactly the same stuff happened in Brazil. Like so around between 64 to 85, you couldn't criticize the government. You couldn't like be against anything. Like there was a heavy censorship. The game like hints that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the government was a military government, so you couldn't vote for president or many other things. And that time itself was a time of horror because your relative could simply disappear one day and you wouldn't know what happened to them. It turns out that maybe the government thought they were a communist,
Mm-hmm.
so they would eliminate this person and they wouldn't even let you know like, what happened to them. To this day, there are thousands of Brazilians that we don't know what happened to them. Maybe they were assassinated. Maybe they were, we don't know what
Yeah.
happened. And for me, this is like real life horror, like something that happened. Um, and I think this is kind of like a very particular story because I used to live near an army base
Okay.
or army, like, I don't know, facility. I don't know exactly what that place was because that's the thing we don't know.
Sure.
Like even nowadays, we don't have
Like a
like,
term or anything for
uh,
that like specific
yeah.
area. I get it.
And then just recently, like I found, no, just like a couple years ago, I found out that that place near my house, like 3 blocks away from my house, was actually a place that people were being taken to be tortured. And that had a huge impact on me because I was like, wait, how come nobody ever talked about that? Like, how come that was something that was just swept under the rug and like that's it? Like, um, and and yeah, like so this kind of stuff, like I try to translate those feelings of uncertainty, feeling of being like I don't know, over like there is some an authority like looking over you, like but in a bad way, like kind of like it's kind of like the I don't know how to explain that, but basically like this feeling of not feeling safe,
Yeah.
not because you don't have protection, but because the people that should protect you are not protecting you at all. They are the menace in this case, actually. It's like not a fear um of a particular monster or a particular something else, but a fear of just being killed
Yeah.
for doing something because you're not free, because you don't have the freedom of I don't know, reading a book, of like talking about some ideas with your friends, and that would like basically be the your end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then this was mixed with another idea that I had, and I don't want to say too much about it, but after I played Control,
Mm-hmm.
like the action game from Remedy, like the one that came before Alan Wake 2, that game also gave me a lot of ideas because that's not exactly this anything similar, but they have this governmental like branch that is responsible to take care of paranormal events.
Yep.
And that game is great, and they show a lot of like how they are all these people responsible for this part of the government. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. Maybe they don't care what they're doing. They don't care about people. They don't care about employees. They don't care about anything. They just want to have more knowledge, and they want to control like
Yeah,
some
basically
stuff.
they will sacrifice anything possible to get the end result of what they're trying to achieve, no matter how many people
Exactly.
get hurt or what they have to do. I totally understand that.
Yeah. And then when I mix that with that idea, there's like, okay, what if this institution was the Brazilian dictatorship from the 70s?
Hmm.
Considering everything they did wrong with the real world, what could have done if this world had a little twist that was like paranormal or just simply fictional? What would happen in that case? So I'm not retelling the story. I'm not trying to like rewrite history as it like that it happened,
Hmm.
but just add this like multiverse branch where this kind of shit happened. Like, sorry, I don't know if I say
No, no,
properly
you're
swear, but
good. You can curse. No, no, honestly, totally.
uh,
Yes, you're more than welcome to.
sorry, yeah. And this is this is the premise of the
Mhm.
game. Like, and I started writing the story based on that.
Okay. Um. Yeah. No. That was very in depth, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk about that. I want to
Hmm.
ask, like, when you finish the game and you have players play this for the first time, what is your ultimate goal or vision that you want people to have as they finish the game?
I think um I think it's really important for me that people have um it's really hard to say what I want them to feel because what you
Sure.
feel playing the game is very particular.
Or not.
But
I can rephrase the question. Not even want them to feel like, or what's the message that you want them to perceive? That
yeah,
might be easier to say instead of an emotion.
yeah. I think first of all, I want more people to know about history,
Okay.
about what actually happened in some countries. Like sometimes I talk with like people that are not like non-Brazilians, and I tell them like I don't know, the conversation goes, and like we get to a point where I talk about Brazilian history, and I say, yeah, so Brazil went through some dictatorships, not only one, but some of them, and people go like, how come? Like I never heard of that. And I think that's something that I want more people to acknowledge that, even Brazilians, because unfortunately we went through like some weird times recently where people denied what happened.
Okay.
They're like, no, that time was great. Everybody was very happy. We were very safe. And I feel like, well, maybe that was the reality for you, but that was not the reality for most of the country.
Hmm.
So I want to express this feeling of like this was a bad time for everybody, and I want him to understand that um, r- many bad things happened in Brazil around that time, and that should be remembered. And I think that's one of the reasons, even one of the reasons why they call the game Subversive Memories. Like you have to keep some memories alive so you don't let this kind of stuff happen again. Like we cannot just simply ignore that stuff happen and be like, okay, let's move on. Like, okay, we should move on, but we shouldn't ignore history. We shouldn't ignore like um, the traumas that we collectively experienced throughout that time.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. Just talking about this, just like I got random goosebumps. It's just like it hits in a different level because of how real this is, and even like how you said, like some people turn a blind eye from just the trauma and just the negative things Brazil went through, and I think I commend you for taking some of the things that your experiences or just the country's experience just in general, um, and putting into your vision and putting into a game where you can have a voice on that and for other people to experience that too. Like it's heavy, it's not easy. And that unfortunately is true horror because that's things that people have gone through. Like not knowing if your relative's gonna come home the next day just because of something they're reading or something they're doing is just that's scary. And I
Yeah.
and I truly am. I can't even tell you the feeling I'm feeling just even hearing some of the things you're bringing up, and which I don't even want to say weirdly enough. It gets me excited. I don't even know how to put it into words, but I am excited to play the game because I do want to hear your way of portraying the history from just some of the traumatic things that the Brazil has gone through. So, um, like I said, kudos to you. I think
Appreciate it.
it's just like your version of having your voice, and I think more people should check this game out when it's fully released. And something I would love to do if you're down. I'm trying to do this with a lot of developers that the game's not released. I would love to play when it fully released. I would love to play it like a walkthrough and have you commentate on it while I'm playing it. If that's something that you might be interested in.
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, perfect. I'm
Nice.
excited. So, breaking news: when a game releases, we're gonna do a developer commentary walkthrough of the game, and like I said, I'm trying to do this with a lot of developers, and it's just a way for you to just be like, okay, this particular part is why I added this, and just add more
Mhm.
context to it. Like, obviously, we only have the video that we have, but I feel like we can definitely go even more in depth if I'm playing the game where I could just be focused on the game. You could just give me the commentary. That's what my ultimate goal is.
Nice.
So I think that would be awesome. Um, Let me ask you. So, how did you approach crafting the atmosphere and setting in the game to invoke like the tension and fear?
Yeah, one thing that um I don't want to spoil too much, but
Of course not.
my idea here is that you are going to you're gonna find a lot of victims of the dictatorship.
Okay.
And my idea is that throughout the game, you'll be able to interact with them somehow. Um, Listening, like talking with them, getting like documents that they I don't know, like diaries they wrote, this kind of stuff. And I want this to be part of the storytelling. And at the same time, I want these to be part of gameplay. So they might give you hints, they might help you somehow. Because I want it to be very dark. Like as you can see, like through the gameplay, everything is very dark. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I didn't want your character, like the main character, to have a gun. Because also I think this is part of the comment I'm making about when you, as a citizen, you are being I don't know, like terrorized by the government. Like they have guns, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't. So your way of protecting yourself is not violent. Like you don't have this option, and they do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the reasons why in this game I decided to use a flashlight instead of using like normal guns, because I think that communicates better like the feeling of um, being powerless against like some things. And
Gives me Alan Wake
it,
vibes, like with the
yes,
flashlight.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, yeah. I played Alan Wake, and I think that helped a lot. But interestingly, this is gonna sound super, but one game that actually helped me a lot finding like ways of using flashlight and inspire me was Luigi's Mansion for
Okay, okay. Luigi Mansion. I don't care what anybody else says. It's a horror game, and I consider it a
yeah.
horror game.
Luigi's Mansion has a lot of cool ideas of how to use Nintendo is always like that. They stretch the mechanics as much as they can. Like you can use one thing like for many reasons, for many things. And I think um and that's something interesting. I think sometimes when people want to make horror experiences, they don't have to look only at horror games.
Hmm.
They can look at other stuff that can be translated like to like a horror experience. I think in recent years, like we've seen a lot of that. And of course, like I don't want the game to be we just mentioned. I want it to be something much darker. So that's why like the um you find um yeah. So there are a lot of paranormal stuff, supernatural stuff happening. across the game, and I think that also sets um, like how you feel about that, the uncertainty and like feeling powerless overall throughout the whole experience.
Okay, okay. This is not even all my questions, but it's something that
Mhm.
I like this question, so I'm gonna just ask it. When you hear like the word horror, like how would you describe it? Like when it comes to just the word and just like what is your interpretation of horror?
I think horror is a way of dealing with our fears. When we make horror media, I think we are trying to translate stuff that we fear. And normally that's something that can be very like straightforward. Like you're scared of spiders, so you
Okay.
make a spider movie. But sometimes also like stuff that is very indirect happens. And I think this is the good thing about horror. Like sometimes you're translating a fear with something that is totally it's like kind of like non-related.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that the greatest types of horror are the ones that are not too direct about what they're talking about. For example, um, how movies like I don't know how the horror media, American horror media in the 50s, 60s were about like alien invasion, and that was translating the fear of being invaded by Soviet Union, this
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. Or how a lot of we have a lot of zombie movies nowadays. Not nowadays, we had like this boom over 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of translates our fear of apocalypse, the fear of our society going down the hill, and everybody this fear that people that you could trust, like your neighbors, they become your enemies.
Yeah.
I think this is one kind of like this kind of fear when it gets translated like that, it helps you. Um, I think in the end, like horror helps you deal with your own fears and talk about them in a way that you wouldn't do otherwise. I think that's it
Yeah, no, no.
for me.
So this is, I mean, a personal question. Again, if you feel free
Mhm.
to not answer it or not, it's totally up to you. But would you share some of your fears? Like, what is your biggest fear? And do you think that you use some of your fears to create some subversive memories?
Yeah, I think particularly with Subversive Memories is one fear that I have, and I think I shared that with a lot of my friends and other people. Like, we fear that the time of dictatorship comes back.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's real. That's something that looms over Brazil now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, we have a lot of extremist like politicians that really want that to happen. They want to like they basically want to have the power and become dictators themselves. And that if that happens, I'm pretty sure like I will be a target. A lot of my friends will be targets of the dictatorship because back then they will not only target people that will be considered like enemies of the state, but anything that they simply didn't like. So like indigenous people were targeted, gay people were targeted, um, like stuff that was kind of like non-related
Mm-hmm.
that wouldn't threat the government, but they were still persecuted and killed a lot of times. So my fear is that that kind of stuff happens again. So I think that's why we should look at the past, look at what happened, and be like, hey, this was bad, this was shit. Like we don't want that to happen again. So
Yeah.
kind of like spread the idea that first of all that happened for real, and second of all this might happen again. So we should be vigilant, like vigilant forever. Like, this is not something that just disappears. Like
Yeah.
if we don't take care of of ourselves, this will come.
Knowing that something like that is looming, and you still made a game like this that could make you a potential um, target in the future, like you, what made you still want to make something like this, knowing that it could potentially be detrimental to you in the future or put you at risk in the future? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, 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 yeah. that's something that I actually like fear, like honestly, like to the point that, for example, the first time that you asked me if we could talk about the game, like for some time I wasn't even showing my face around, like because um just to think about it, like I used to live near like an army facility, like
Yeah,
those people could track me down very easily if they wanted.
yeah, yeah.
The thing is, now at this moment we have laws that don't let them do that. But at the same time, I feel like we should occupy the space of discussion, like where we don't have space to talk about this. Like teachers try to talk about that in school with kids. They try to teach them,
Mm-hmm.
but you know how school is. Many people are uninterested in like history. They don't want to like study that. They don't want to learn. So the other option that we have is use like movies, music, media to discuss this. And Brazil is very good to develop to create like other culture like devices to talk about this, especially music.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff to discuss that. But unfortunately, I one of the reasons why I decided to make this game is because in the game industry, especially the Brazilian one, we have nothing like that. Much of the opposite. We have games that you can play an FPS and enter the favela and shoot people there, kill everybody just out of spite.
Mm-hmm.
Or people that um, are very underprivileged are portrayed in video games like very poorly. Or, and I can even give you examples. I can talk about Max Payne
I
3.
was literally just
Um,
about to bring that up. I
yeah,
probably like I was gonna ask like, when you said the favelas, and I was gonna ask you like, what is your feelings on Max Payne? Like, is that game really,
yeah,
really entrenched, like being in that general area and like your
yeah,
character that goes around, you're getting shot at and you're shooting other like yeah, basically, how do you feel towards that? Like, I want to know. Like,
yeah.
I'm very curious.
Yeah, because I think we don't have a very positive view of like in when we talk about video game as a medium, we don't have a very positive view of Brazilians,
Hmm.
um, or what's truly happened to them. Like a lot of times, they are portrayed as like the portrait is really bad. Like either they don't speak Portuguese, they speak Spanish, or they are portrayed like as I don't know, like if you go to a favela, everybody in favela are criminals, which is not true.
Hmm.
Like like this is crazy. Like how can they do that? Modern Warfare 2 also does that. Like yeah, and I think that doesn't help with the how the way that Brazilians sees themselves
Hmm.
there in that space. Like they they don't have a very positive view of who they are because every time they're portrayed very poorly. And it's almost like a meme at this point. Like
Like a
people when a
stereotype.
game says like, yeah, when a game is like, oh, we're gonna go to Brazil. Okay, so we're expecting what Blanca from Street Fighter. Like we expect like a green savage like thing, like this kind of stuff. It's not very
Yeah, I was gonna say
positive
Resident
for
Evil 5 got a lot of heat for like
yeah,
going to Africa and just like how they portray like it's not it was hard like a lot of people got offended like and again I can totally understand you're playing a Caucasian male kill like unaliving African Americans. I get that could be perceived in so many terrible ways and just how they portrayed the game and just the care like I said, they got a lot of heat. So like I just feel like when certain video games companies bring up like go to different countries and like try to portray what the people there are, I feel like it's very finicky, like a gray area. Like I don't
yeah,
really think you could do like honestly I don't think you can do it right because I feel like at some point you're gonna offend somebody because there's like a lot of people
yeah,
that have different perspectives, um, but sometimes a
yeah.
lot
Like
of it is
one
couldn't yeah.
thing.
No, go ahead, good.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I feel like um we we should be free to like portray some stuff that we want in our game. Like, for example, I'm not against Max Payne 3. Like, okay, this game can exist. I think it
Hmm.
has its own space. And to be honest, it's not a bad game. It's actually a good game. Um, but I feel like the problem is relies on when we have the games that portray something only in one particular way. Like,
Okay.
and I think that also comes down to the fact that a lot of developers, as you said, like they have trouble like portraying people who that they are not. Like how can like I don't know, like sorry, a white dude from USA like say like how a Brazilian person feels about some stuff. And I think this is where like some developers from other nations should step up and like show, hey, this is one story I want to tell.
To give it more
This
of an
is
input,
why,
yeah.
yeah, this is why, for example, detention was had such a huge impact on me. I was like, okay, this is a story that is from a Taiwanese studio, from Taiwanese people,
Mm.
and you can relate to that still. You can fear like the horror. You can feel their feelings. You can like understand some stuff. And that is true for a lot of stuff. Like we're so used to play Japanese games. Um, and we are not Japanese, but we understand what's going on with them. Like we don't have to play only samurai games. We can play Japanese games that are about other stuff.
Hmm.
And I think it's the same from Brazil. Like we don't have to play only games that we kill people from the favela because that's not the reality. Our lives are like
So much more
much more stuff
advanced than
happen.
that. Yeah, get that.
Yeah.
No, and I think uh, this is a good way to just like get the word out. You know, like
Hmm.
I'm, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little hesitant to do something like this just in case, like when it comes to politics and just like it's a touchy subject, but
Hmm.
it's it's how you know your game's so I don't even know what the word is, like inspired by a lot of the history. So I you know I'm happy that I took the chance to do this because like I'm even learning some stuff. It's an educational thing too. You know, like it's not only just a video game. You want people to learn and just like the history and everything like that, and that's important because a lot of the time history, when it is dark, is forgotten. You know,
Yeah.
people just turn it, like you said, like turn a blind eye and they want to just move past it. But it's just remembering like the things in the past and doing better and making changes so that things those terrible incidents don't happen again. And I think that's a very important thing. And um, like your game or my platforms, I hope that it definitely could be a way, like even if it's a small step forward, it is a step forward. So, they, like I'm really excited to play this game. I like I
Thanks,
really,
Avery.
really, really want to like get my hands onto this. So I need you to hurry up and make. No, I'm just kidding. um,
Oh, come on, man.
no, no, no. Take your time. Take your time. But I just want to talk a little bit more about the game. Like, so tell us about the gameplay mechanics that contribute to the overall experience of your game, and how do you balance like the challenge and fright and horror in general.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed about um one thing that it's very different from like the old survival horror games to the modern ones. I think it's a lot to do with decision making and how you feel like your decisions might affect the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when you play Resident Evil Classic, like you have some bullets for your gun, and that's it. Like if you run out, you run out. Like you get by with a knife, and we all know the knife doesn't do anything. Um, if you save the game and you don't have like anything to recover your health and you're alone health, you have to move on from that. Like even saving sometimes require resources. And I think this decision makes create a tension of like, shit, should I like use this now? Should I spend this resource now because I might miss this later? And because honestly, some people they don't get scared of anything.
Mm-hmm.
They might play a game that is the scariest like thing ever, and they might be fine. But somehow video games they create a second layer, which is and is only possible with video games where they feel like, okay, what I do here matters to the story. It matters to what I'm doing. And if I do something wrong, I can't move on. And this creates tension. And I think this is something very valuable to get from these old games that we don't have. I mean, we can have with some modern games, but generally speaking, we don't.
Hmm.
Um, so this is something that I try to get from that. And another thing that adds through gameplay, it adds fear, is the back and forth. It's like going to one side of the map, finding something important, and be like, oh man, I have to go back all the way back. And I know there are some scary stuff in the middle, and I have no other option. Like, and and this also creates tension because in your head you're making like a mental map of the
Hmm.
steps that you have to take to do something, and you know you're gonna find something. And also, like, this is the time that good developers might add a twist, and then you might not find it, or you might find something worse, or you might other the path that you had planned might change totally because one path was closed. So all this kind of stuff creates a sense of insecurity. So this insecurity like raises the tension a lot.
Okay.
And at the same time, when you achieve the goal, you also feel rewarded. So there are these two sides, like high tension insecurity and then payoff and like tranquility.
Gotcha.
I think
Gotcha.
this is fundamental for this kind of game.
Awesome. I wanted to ask, like, what are some of the challenges that you faced during the development, and what some of the high points and low points that you had making this game?
Yeah, so I'm not good at coding at all. Like, so a lot of times with these games, like, because you have to keep track of what their player is doing. You have to make sure that they cannot break the game. So what by that I mean, like, um, if you play a second time, maybe you might know how to do stuff, but you cannot just like enter a random room and find another path that will go all around what you should actually have done. And with this kind of like game, it's really tricky to design like a layout and level design that will make sure that the player follows a path that you kind of intend. Like they can do like some variations of that,
Hmm.
but they shouldn't be able to skip that because if they skip, they're basically losing part of the experience. And when you have a map that's like this, like basically like a dungeon, like you have different branches to go to, it's hard to like, especially if, with playtesting, you have to playtest all possibilities. Okay, what if I go to room three, but not go, I don't go to room four, and then I go to room five? Like you have to do different orders. And as a developer, I think this is really difficult because your eye gets trained with a game and you end up missing stuff. For example, I had a bug that was simply because we had a key item,
Hmm.
and when you pick it up, you have to say yes or no if you want to keep it. And of course, every time I play, I say yes, I want to keep the item, and I never said no. And then when I said no, it broke the game like glitched, and I was like, like of course players are going to say no, like
Hmm.
anything can happen. Um, and I think this is one of the challenges, like designing something sturdy and play tested like repeatedly.
Okay.
Um, it's kind of hard.
I totally respect that. We are running almost out of time, so I got like two more questions for you. Hour goes
Sure,
by
I'll try to
really
be faster.
quickly. Um,
Yeah.
as a what advice would you give to aspiring game developers who want to create their own games? Like, say, if I was a person that wanted to just get into game development, what is the best advice you can give?
I think I got this advice and I was really bad at following it. So I'm gonna try to like do this myself and tell other people. Like start with small projects. Small projects. Like I think this is game developers will tell this consistently to everybody that is starting. Like don't try to make your favorite game. Try to make something that is simple and easy to make
Hmm.
because you have to be good at finishing making games, not good at development yet. So make a Flappy Bird, make a Super Mario Bros. Stage 1, make something very simple. And then when you feel very comfortable finishing like, I don't know, five, six, 10 projects, Then you try to do something that's going to take a little more, maybe 6 months to a year. But I think the major mistake many people makes like, okay, I'm gonna start making and I'm gonna make Resident Evil 7. That doesn't work. That is like, I don't know, that's like trying to build a car when you don't even have a bicycle.
Mm,
So it's I don't think it's the smartest move that you can have when you are starting.
okay. Start small, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Finally, is there anything you want to share with the audience or just people hearing you for the first time? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll just tell people like to please wishlist the game on Steam. Like if you're interested, if you think it's a has a good premise and everything. Um, follow me on Twitter. I normally post updates over there, like my personal account. I don't have an account for the game. I don't want to separate stuff. Like it's my game. And yeah, I try to pay attention to other things that are from different cultures, different countries. Play games from different countries, watch movies from different countries. Um, right now, I feel like we're having some crisis with like cultural production. Like movies are all seem to be the same. Games are very similar to one another. So I think it's time to like give an opportunity for stuff that like I don't know, leave your comfort zone. Try to experience different stuff that might actually give you like um something very nice.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the game link is in the description. And I just want to thank Akira. Thank you so much for being a part of Whispers of Horror.
Thank you.
And yeah, follow me on all platforms, And this is episode 15 of Whispers of Horror. And we will be live again on Friday to have another guest. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys so much. 86,400 seconds in the whole day. The fact that you guys are spending any time with us is so appreciative.